is there something, you know, all the stories we're talking about, PayPal trying to crush Toby Young like a bug, is this something new in the English world, or can we find precedents for it?
It's new old. I think the thing that we need to remember, of course, is the natural state of human society is hostility to freedom of speech. People don't actually really like hearing views that they disagree with. I mean, come on, Mark, you and I are often guilty of this. We say very rude things about our opponents. We use words which suggest they are ill-intentioned. We use words that suggest, wouldn't it be nice if they shut up? Learning to debate, as it were, coolly, is very difficult because all those of us who feel strongly, passions naturally come to the surface. And what we had to do to get that world of freedom of speech, which was seen as the essential characteristic of English politics for the 18th and 19th, most of the 20th century, we had to make really difficult choices. One of the first ones we had to do was to stop demonizing and punishing people that we disagree with. Again, it's extraordinarily difficult that you could actually lose power without being punished. We had consciously to decide to do that. The last political leader that is convicted of, or effectively, in fact, he was formally, though the penalties were never visited on him, was the Earl of Oxford, Robert Harley, for negotiating the peace treaties with France at Utrecht. And when the Whigs came to power with the new dynasty, with the Georgians, he was put in the Tower. He was forced into exile in France. That's the last time it happens. But suddenly, we're seeing that again. We're seeing that with Trump. We're seeing the desire, he's lost office, but we're seeing the desire to punish him, make sure he can never hold office again. Look at Johnson. Johnson has lost office, but there is the House of Commons getting on its moral high horse, saying we are going to have the Committee of Privileges that will rule him in violation of the privilege of the House, that he's lied to it, therefore he should be punished, therefore he should lose his seat. You see what I mean? There's a move to punish wrong opinion. And where politicians lead, companies like PayPal follow. We've got to stop it. But it's learned behavior. And the other thing, which is very striking, is what's happened now, as indeed politics in the 17th century, the 16th century, is we've got a notion that there's only one opinion. You've got to have a notion that there's a choice of opinions. In other words, we've got to admit that most difficult thing, Mark, for you and me, that we might be wrong. And it's a seriously difficult thing to learn to do. And the odd thing is, of course, religion is one of the things that, as it were, most drives people to think we are absolutely right. But so much modern politics, and particularly the politics of the left, has become quasi-religious. You know, Andrew Doyle of this parish, one of our presenters, has written about the new Puritanism. And it's a Puritanism which sees it as only one right opinion. The eco-protesters think that anything but their opinion is not simply wrong, but morally wicked. In other words, there's no right for freedom of speech because your opponent is wicked. So we need to demoralize. We need to pull back. You know what I do? I begin teaching debating at school. The notion, in other words, I'm being something really old-fashioned, but it would work.
And teach the debating technique whereby you're handed your position arbitrarily, so you have to argue pro the motion for 10 minutes and then argue. You're absolutely right, though, that these days, increasingly, there's only one correct position, whether we're talking about COVID or climate change or Islam or transgender bathrooms. But if you said to these people, you're just like the guys who wanted to put the Earl of Oxford in the Tower and then behead him, they would think you're crazy because they think that they are progressive and at the peak of enlightenment.
They wouldn't. You know, there is again the new Marxism of the 1960s and 70s began to recognize that to bring about the world it wanted, it would have to repress freedom of speech. It's built into their worldview because, of course, they're progressive in a very, very special sense. They think they've arrived at YouTube. They think they understand the world. And, of course, they're increasingly, and this is the other thing, so terrifying, Mark, they're able to call on so much expert opinion. The science says. The science says about COVID. The science says about climate change. And this is one of the most profound dangers. What we've actually seen are professions like science, which should be skeptical. I mean, science doesn't know anything. Science has got provisional hypotheses that appear to work. You know, Newton is questioned. The greatest of scientists have to be questioned. Even you know, Einstein and his fuzzy hair have had to be questioned. You've got to deal in a world again in which there are two truths simultaneously in science. You've got the truth of quantum mechanics, and you've got the truths of Einstein, and they're different. But we've lost this gift. We've got to recover it.